Okay, Ka, how you doing? I've got your work up here, and I was reading your writing. I'll bet you wonder why I have that highlighted. Well, I'll tell you what. This is a key statement right here, and I want to address it. But you're saying that it looks like there's more information, but once you actually start reading it, it's not that much. And I agree, it isn't that much, but it looks like there's a lot. And I think one of the reasons is because the type is pretty small. What this is pointing to is harmony, and one of the reasons why harmony is so important, especially in a piece like this, is that and it kind of points to the popularity and the success of infographics in today's data-driven world, is that you don't want it to look like there's more information than there is. Okay. And I'm going to give you some tips here. And the reason being is that because as viewers, our attention spans have gone decreased exponentially in the last 20 years. And when we see something that appears to be daunting, when we see something that appears like it's going to take more than a couple of minutes, we shy away from it. That's just the natural progression of the informational world we live in, and due in large part to the internet and our inability to focus for more than a few seconds. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make some comments that I think will increase harmony. I give you some recommendations. I'm not going to give you actual, do this. I'm not going to give you actual direction because I want you to do that yourself. So I just want to point out some areas that I think can be improved, and then you think about how you're going to improve them. Okay. Now, the first thing I see is the outer frame. If you're going to frame it, frame it. I think this is kind of impeding a little bit of the way that these are overlapping the frame. So I mean, yeah, I would kind of rethink that area right there, because right now it just seems almost seems like a mistake that they're overlapping the frame. Um, so okay, so let's start refugee resettlement program. Boy, I wonder if you could come up with something a little bit more catchy. It's a little bit more catchy, and really use your typographic skills to draw interest and attention to this. So, to a large degree, this area right here is going to determine whether the viewer comes in and really wants to spend some time here or not. I want to give you an example here. Let's take a look at Craig's. Now, I know that the subject matter is totally different. His has a lot more levity. It's a lot lighter. And less serious of a subject, but this title area right here is just so inviting, really, really bringing the viewer right in, almost daring the viewer not to enter and take a look at the composition. Whereas this one is a little bit more pedestrian in nature, and I'm just a little concerned. I think that this could be this title area could be much more compelling in terms of typographic technique, and maybe even adding maybe even changing the words or adding a tagline, something that will increase this interest. Okay, so right here, by the way, these two paragraphs here, they don't have periods. So you want to watch your punctuation up here. So right here, the difference between a refugee and an immigrant. So you're saying immigrant, then right over here, you're saying refugee. And I'm just going to zoom in. You're not going to see this because it's going to be a system zoom. Someone who has been forced to flee his or her home to war, violence, or persecution. However, the illustration itself indicates natural disaster. So we're not showing war or persecution, we're showing natural disaster as a reason for fleeing. So there's a disconnect here between this statement and this illustration. I love the fact that they're entering the timeline of the refugee, but we need to make that a little bit more clear, that they're being forced from their home for religious or persecution or whatever, violent, political, whatever reasons, but that's forcing them to enter this timeline of a refugee. But let's make that a little bit more clear. Right now, there's a degree of separation here that I think is not specifically clear. So a little clarity there, I think, is going to draw a nice connection between the being forced from your natural habitat into this timeline of a refugee. So let's make that a little bit more clear. Um, Yeah, definitely, definitely. We want to make that more clear. So, okay, now we move on. Now, let me talk about, oh, by the way, this illustration right here, this plane is great for the passport, but this line right here almost looks like the plane is continued. So it almost looks like the plane has to do with this illustration here as well. So you can see this line almost looks like a continuation of the plane. So keep that in mind. Color usage. I would not recommend using, it looks like you're using default colors, whether you're an RGB or CMYK, it looks like you're using default color swatches from Illustrator. I would recommend using custom colors. The second I opened this, I realized that it's default colors. Illustrator's got some fantastic color tools. And you know, you've got use of Adobe Color and several other color tools. So I would recommend customizing your color chart. I'm sorry, your color palette instead of using default colors. Oh, and there's not a real great degree of harmony right here. The green, the red. It's just we just really want to point to a little bit more of a subtle harmony in your color considerations. Okay, so as I said, the timeline is great. I think the graphics could be a little bit larger on the timeline, and I think that this dashed line indicating they're entering the timeline, I think could be a little bit more prominent. I also think your typography is very small. I agree with you there. So we need to do some things here to watch the typography. As far as harmony and typography goes, these are really small. And then this right here is where the viewer is going to go first typographically. And I'm not real sure that's what you want because that's the biggest and the brightest on the page. Now this text right here doesn't know whether it wants to be associated with this graphic here or this graphic here because it's kind of sitting in the middle and there's no alignment. I would recommend left aligning this right here. And that's going to give you a little bit more area to play with your timeline and to increase your icons, etc., and maybe draw a little more prominence to that area. So yeah, so I would, since this type belongs with this graphic, I would left align this and bring it over. I would not stagger this type. Too difficult to read. Too much eye movement. Too much eye movement in that type right there. This is good stuff right here. Top states, top 5 countries. Okay, good. Fantastic. And then this, the plane itself. Okay, so I'm just wondering how this turned into a plane. I'm going to do that system zoom again. Once all employees are got to see what POI for transportation to the U.S. Okay, got it. Okay, got it. Okay, good. You know, you don't necessarily have to include your sources on your infographic. You know, I mean, right now, I think that's just consuming some really valuable real estate here. So we don't need to include your sources in your infographic. So let me see. This is good. Lacking a little bit of contrast in your color choices here. I think we could use some overall bump in the contrast in the graphic area themselves. Not necessarily these. I think these, by the nature of the default colors you're using, these have plenty of contrast, but they're just not real harmonious. So a little bit more contrast in the actual mapping area. Again, this map right here doesn't know whether it belongs to this map. I mean, this portion of the map in the background right here doesn't know whether it wants to belong over here or over here. So we definitely want to make that very, very clear. Like we have here, this map here clearly belongs with this set of informational data, whereas this one doesn't know whether it wants to be over here or over here, or is it separate? Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, and then finally, take action is fantastic. That's good stuff. Learn how you can help. Well, tell us how you can help. Tell us what to do here. Is there what can we do? How can we do? Instead of learn how to help, tell us what we can do. Let's take a solid call to action here. Is there an organization we can contact? Is there some area we can go for further education? And so instead of just saying learn how, tell us how we can learn how. Okay. Other than that, I think it's really, really phenomenal work. Really fantastic job here. Just watch your hierarchy, both visual and typographic and informational. Watch your hierarchy, watch your contrast, watch your grouping, watch your alignment, and watch your proximity. Okay, I know I just threw a lot at you, but it's not. It's like you said up here. I threw a lot of information at you, but once you actually look at the video and maybe view it again, it's not that much. You're well on your way to an outstanding piece. All right, Cobb, great job. Thanks so much for sharing, and let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Thank you very much.